The highway patrol officer stood beside the 18-wheeler loaded with crates, shaking his head at the line of cars backed up for half a mile. Inside those crates, 42,000 pounds of vegetables that shouldn't exist. The driver kept saying the same thing. Lady in Tulare County grew all this on dead land. I saw the field myself. The officer had no citation to write. The produce was legal. It just seemed impossible. 14 months earlier, the auction in Tulare County lasted 8 minutes. Property 062-184-091, 41 acres, August 3, 2023, 9:12 a.m. The auctioneer stood on the courthouse steps. Orchard removal required. Stumps still in ground. Soil reports show severe micronutrient depletion and hardpan at 18 inches. Do I hear 5,000? Sienna Oakes, 26 years old, held a cashier's check for $5,400. Everything left after selling her grandfather's truck and the tools from his shed. Her throat was dry. Around her, men in Carhartt jackets muttered and looked away. They knew what she was learning. When an orchard dies and the land is stripped, what's left isn't farmland. It's a graveyard. 5,000, Sienna said. Silence. The gavel fell. She signed the deed in a back office that smelled like burnt coffee. The clerk, an older man with ink-stained fingers, slid the documents across. You related to Raymond Oakes? My grandfather. Thought so. He got his jaw. He tapped the deed. This parcel killed the last owner. Pulled the almond trees 5 years ago. Couldn't grow anything after. Soil's cooked. I know. Then why'd you buy it? Sienna touched the canvas bag on her shoulder, the one holding her grandfather's field notebooks, wrapped in a grain sack and tied with twine. Because my grandfather would have. The clerk's expression softened. Ray was stubborn. Meant that with respect. She drove out in a borrowed Honda Civic that afternoon. The land was 41 acres of stumps, dirt, and despair. The previous owner had grown almonds for 30 years, pulled 4,000 trees when disease and economics made it impossible to continue. He tried to sell the wood, then abandoned the stumps when removal cost more than they were worth. What remained? Rows of jagged root systems, earth compacted by decades of heavy equipment, soil depleted by industrial monoculture. The county report said micronutrient levels were critically low, and hardpan, a cement-like layer of compressed soil, sat 18 inches down, blocking root growth and water penetration. She walked the property. It took 2 hours. Her boots crunched on ground that felt more like parking lot than field. No weeds. No volunteers. Nothing growing. That night, in a sleeping bag in the Civic, Sienna opened her grandfather's notebooks by phone light. Raymond Oakes had farmed 60 acres in Kings County until water costs and corporate competition crushed him in 2009. He'd worked as a farm advisor after that, traveling to small farms, teaching techniques the universities had forgotten. The notebooks were 15 years of observations, experiments, innovations. She found the section she needed on page 287. Orchard aftermath recovery, non-chemical remediation. Her grandfather's handwriting, tight and precise. When the old trees are gone and the land seems dead, remember, soil is living. It can be rebuilt. The corporations say, chemicals, amendments, purchased inputs. I say, diversity, patience, biology. Page 288 to 294 shows the method. 3 phases. 18 months. Cost, labor and knowledge. Return, land that lives again. The pages detail the companion planting system Raymond had studied in Italy and adapted for California. Fast-growing nitrogen fixers, legumes, interplanted with deep-rooted dynamic accumulators, comfrey, chicory, and mineral mining cover crops, buckwheat, phacelia. The roots would break the hardpan. The plants would rebuild soil structure, restore nutrients, feed microorganisms. In the margins, her grandfather had written, mockers will say it can't work at scale. Let them mock. Biology doesn't need their permission. Sienna spent $340 she couldn't afford on seeds, bulk prices from a supplier in Oregon who thought she was insane. You're planting 41 acres in cover crops? That's not a cash crop. You'll make zero money. I know. Then why? I'm not planting for this year. I'm planting for the soil. The seeds arrived in burlap sacks. She rented a no-till drill for $200, 3 days, cash up front. The machine was older than she was, but it worked, cutting slots through the hardpan, dropping seeds, moving on. She worked alone. 14-hour days. The drill broke down twice. She fixed it with zip ties and prayers. By late August, the field was planted. Alternating rows of crimson clover, hairy vetch, comfrey, chicory, buckwheat. The neighbors came to watch. First was Tom Vieira, 63, whose almond orchard bordered her north fence. He drove up on an ATV, looked at the field, looked at her. "You're the Oakes girl." "Yes, sir. Your grandfather helped me with a pest problem back in 2011. "Good man." He gestured at the field. "What is all this?" "Cover crops. Soil remediation. You know cover crops don't pay bills, right? They pay the soil. Bills come after." Tom's face creased. "You got money to last 18 months with no income?" "No, sir." "Then you're going to lose this place." He left without another word. The second visitor was Marina Soto, early 40s, who managed a mid-sized vegetable operation east of Sienna's property. She walked the rows, touched the emerging seedlings, frowned. "Who designed this planting pattern?" "My grandfather. He's dead now." "I'm sorry." Marina pulled out her phone, took pictures. "This is old-school companion planting. We don't see this anymore. Too labor-intensive, no immediate return." She looked at Sienna. "You planning to go organic?" "Haven't decided. Just trying to make the soil live again." Marina's expression was unreadable. "The county extension agent is telling people you're wasting time. He says this land is beyond recovery without serious chemical intervention." Sienna said nothing. Marina handed her a business card. "If you make it work, call me. I'd like to know how." By September, the field was green. Crimson clover spread like carpet. Vetch climbed invisible ladders. Comfrey sent roots down 3 feet, breaking through hardpan like biological jackhammers. And Sienna ran out of money. She had $17 in her account, half a tank of gas, and the Civic's engine light glowing amber. The landline she'd connected to a post by the road rang at 4 p.m. on September 29th. A corporate voice. "Miss Oakes, this is Western Valley Land Group. We're consolidating parcels for a development project. We'd like to purchase your property. 6,000 cash, close in 2 weeks." She was standing in the field, mud to her ankles, hands raw from pulling stumps. "It's not for sale. You purchased at 5. We're offering 6. That's a 20% return for 2 months ownership. Not for sale." A pause. "Miss Oakes, you have no water allocation, depleted soil, and no viable crop. Take the offer." She hung up. That night, the first rain in 5 months arrived. Sienna stood in the field and let it soak her, watching the water sink in a soil that was finally, slowly, beginning to live. The rain fell for 3 days straight. On the morning of October 2nd, Sienna walked her field under clearing skies. The cover crops had exploded, clover thick as lawn, vetch climbing over itself, comfrey leaves the size of dinner plates. The buckwheat was flowering, white blossoms humming with bees that had appeared from nowhere. But rain didn't pay bills. The Civic's registration was overdue. The landline bill was 30 days past due. She'd been eating rice and canned beans for 2 weeks. She needed work. The labor contractor in Early Mart hired her for tomato harvest, $14 an hour, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., 5 days a week. The work was brutal. Bent over all day, hands stained red, shoulders screaming. She came back to her field, each evening barely able to move. Tom Vieira saw her stumbling out of the Civic one night, covered in tomato dust. He drove over on his ATV. "You working harvest?" "Yes, sir." "And farming this place?" "Trying to." He looked at the field, at her, then back at the field. The cover crops were waist-high now, a jumble of green. Your grandfather would have done the same thing. Worked whatever job kept the land alive. He reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope. "I got a pest problem again. Lygus bugs in the almonds. I'll pay you $200 to consult. You know the organic methods like Ray did." Sienna's throat tightened. "I can figure it out." "Good enough." The $200 bought another week of time. She spent her evenings going through her grandfather's notebooks, finding his integrated pest management protocols, walking Tom's orchard, identifying beneficial insects, recommending trap crops and natural predators. It worked. Tom paid another $300 for implementation help. Then he told Marina Soto. Marina called on a Saturday morning. "Tom says you know biological pest control. I've got aphids in my lettuce. County wants me to spray. I'd rather not. What do you charge?" $200 for consultation. Come Monday. Sienna drove to Marina's operation. 60 acres of mixed vegetables, meticulously managed, everything organic certified. The aphid pressure was severe. Marina showed her the damage. Curled leaves, sticky honeydew, whole rows threatened. Sienna walked the field margins, found what she needed. Lacewing larvae in the wild grasses, ladybug colonies in the fennel Marina had planted as pollinator habitat. You've already got the predators. You just need to move them into the crop and give them reason to stay. How? Transplant some of that fennel into the field edges. The lacewings will follow. They'll eat the aphids. And stop the broad-spectrum sprays. You're killing your allies. Marina studied her. You learned this from Ray? From his notebooks. He learned it from watching. Can you help me implement it? They worked 3 days together. Sienna showed Marina's crew how to identify beneficial insects, how to create habitat corridors, how to let biology do the work chemicals tried to force. It worked. The aphid population crashed in 2 weeks. Marina paid $800. Then she told 3 other farmers. By November, Sienna had consulting income, $1,200 some months, $2,000 in a good month. Enough to survive, barely. She quit the tomato harvest and focused on the work her grandfather had taught her, helping small farmers solve problems with observation and ecology instead of chemicals and debt. But her own field remained a question mark. The cover crops grew until they were shoulder high, then began to die back as winter approached. Exactly as her grandfather's notes predicted. Sienna mowed them in December, leaving the biomass on the surface. Thousands of pounds of organic matter, nitrogen-rich, ready to decompose and feed the soil. She took soil samples on December 15th and sent them to the same university lab her grandfather had used. The results arrived January 4th, 2024. Organic matter, 4.2%, up from 1.1%. Nitrogen, adequate. Phosphorus, adequate. Micronutrient panel, significantly improved. Hardpan layer, fractured, penetrable. Microbial biomass, high. The land was alive again. Sienna sat in the Civic and cried. 5 minutes of shaking, silent tears. Then she opened her grandfather's notebook to page 294. Phase 2. Production. Plant what feeds people. Choose crops that build on the biology you've restored. Diversity over monoculture. Quality over quantity. Food over commodities. The list of crops read like a farmer's market. Tomatoes, 6 varieties. Peppers, squash, cucumbers, beans, lettuce, carrots, beets. All direct seeded or transplanted. All managed organically. All chosen to complement each other. Protect the soil. Produce continuously. She spent $1,100 on seeds and transplants. A gamble that left her broke again. She spent February and March planting by hand. Every row mapped. Every companion pairing calculated. Tomatoes interplanted with basil. Peppers with cilantro. Squash running between corn rows she'd planted in blocks. Tom Vieira came by in late March. Looked at the field coming to life. You're planting vegetables on old orchard ground? Yes, sir. Everyone says you can't grow quality produce on depleted soil. The soil's not depleted anymore. He walked a row, touched a tomato transplant, felt the earth. This dirt feels different. Softer. Alive. That's the cover crops working. They rebuilt it. You selling at farmers markets? Planning to. And restaurants, if I can find buyers. Tom nodded slowly. My daughter manages a restaurant in Fresno. I'll give you her number. The call to Tom's daughter, Rebecca, led to a meeting. Rebecca Vieira ran a farm-to-table restaurant downtown. 40 seats, upscale clientele, chef-driven menu. She met Sienna at the field in April. My dad says you're growing heirloom varieties? Yes. Cherokee purple tomatoes, shishito peppers, Romanesco squash. Things you can't get from distributors. Rebecca walked the rows, tasted a snap piece straight from the vine, closed her eyes. This is perfect. When can you deliver? June for tomatoes. Peppers in July. I'll take everything you can grow. How much per pound? Sienna named prices she'd researched. Premium rates for organic, heirloom, local. Rebecca didn't blink. Deal. Bring me samples as soon as you've got them. By May, the field was a riot of growth. Tomato plants 8 feet tall. Pepper bushes loaded with fruit. Squash vines running everywhere. The diversity her grandfather had preached about created a system. Insects balanced each other. Diseases couldn't spread. The soil kept improving. And then Western Valley Land Group came back. The same corporate voice on the phone. Miss Oakes, we're prepared to offer $12,000 for your property. That's more than double your purchase price. Not interested. The development is moving forward. Your parcel is surrounded by land we've already acquired. $12,000 is our final offer. Then we're done talking. She hung up and went back to work. The first harvest came June 8th. Sienna picked tomatoes in the cool morning. Cherokee purples so ripe, they felt like water balloons, sweet and heavy and perfect. She delivered 30 pounds to Rebecca's restaurant that afternoon. Rebecca held up a sliced tomato, inhaled. This is why we do what we do. How much can you bring me weekly? Maybe 100 pounds once everything's producing. Mixed vegetables. I'll take it all. By July, Sienna was harvesting 300 pounds a week. Rebecca's restaurant took half. A food co-op in Visalia took the rest. The money was real, $1,800 weekly, sometimes more. She hired 2 part-timers, local women who needed work, paid $16 an hour cash. The field was too big for one person. Together they harvested, washed, packed, delivered, and the neighbors noticed. Marina Soto came by in August, walked the rows, shook her head in disbelief. I heard rumors, but I had to see it. This is orchard land. This shouldn't be possible. It's possible if you rebuild the soil first. How much are you producing per acre? Sienna showed her the harvest logs. Marina studied the numbers, did calculations on her phone. You're outproducing conventional vegetable farms on land that was dead 18 months ago. The biology does the work. I just guide it. Marina looked at her. Would you teach this? I know 5 farmers sitting on depleted land. They'd pay to learn. Pay what? Enough to make it worth your time. Sienna thought about her grandfather's notebooks, the knowledge that had saved her, the methods that could save others. Yes, I'll teach them. That evening, she stood in her field at sunset, surrounded by life that shouldn't exist, tomatoes glowing red, peppers shining in the low light, bees working the squash blossoms. The land that everyone said was finished had become the most productive ground in the county. Her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Miss Oakes? This is David Chun, produce buyer for a regional grocery chain. We heard about your operation. We'd like to discuss a supply contract. Sienna smiled, just a little. I'm listening. The contract David Chun offered was substantial. 300 pounds weekly, mixed vegetables, premium pricing for organic certification. Sienna sat in the Civic reading the terms by flashlight, her hands shaking slightly. Signing meant scaling up. It meant hiring more workers, planting more acres, committing to consistent production. It meant transforming from a small farmer into a real agricultural business. It also meant risking everything she'd built. She called Marina Soto. I need advice. They met at a diner in Tulare at 6 a.m. Marina listened while Sienna explained the offer, the stakes, the fear. What would your grandfather say? Marina asked. Sienna thought about the notebooks, the years Raymond Oakes had spent helping small farmers survive. He'd say don't let fear make decisions. Let the land tell you what's possible. And what's the land telling you? Sienna looked out the window at fields stretching to the horizon. Corporate operations, monocultures, chemical-dependent systems that depleted soil and struggled every year. That there's a better way, and people need to see it work. She signed the contract on September 1st, 2024. The scaling up was brutal. She hired 6 workers, leased a small packing shed, bought a used refrigerated truck for $8,000. She planted another 12 acres using the same cover crop rotation that had saved the first section. The work was 18-hour days, 7 days a week. Tom Vieira's daughter Rebecca helped her navigate the restaurant supply chain, introduced her to 4 more chefs. The food co-op increased their standing order. David Chen's grocery chain featured her produce with signs: local, organic, regenerative. By October, Sienna was producing 1,200 pounds weekly. The field was a patchwork of growth stages, newly planted sections, mid-season crops exploding with fruit, late-season harvests winding down. The diversity meant continuous production, something always ready, always coming, always growing. The county extension agent who dismissed her stopped by in late October. His name was Jim Browning, and he looked embarrassed. Miss Oakes, I owe you an apology. I told people this land was unrecoverable. You told me the conventional wisdom. You weren't wrong about that. But I was wrong to assume conventional wisdom was the only wisdom. He gestured at the field. I've been getting calls. Farmers asking how you did this. Would you be willing to give a presentation? County extension meeting, maybe 50 farmers. Sienna thought about her grandfather being ignored, his methods dismissed. Will they listen? After seeing this? Yes, they'll listen. The presentation happened November 15th at the County AG building. Sienna stood in front of 43 farmers and showed them her grandfather's methods. The cover crop rotations, the companion planting, the biological pest management. She showed soil test results, production logs, profit margins. A man in the back, late 50s, thick arms crossed, stood up. This is small-scale stuff. You've got 41 acres. I've got 400. This doesn't scale. Sienna met his eyes. My grandfather farmed 60 acres this way. It scales as far as you're willing to think differently. And what about market? You're selling to boutique buyers. I need commodity contracts. Marina Soto, sitting in the third row, turned around. The market's changing. Consumers want regenerative. They want organic. They want food that doesn't destroy soil. You can sell commodity crops on dying land, or you can sell premium crops on living land. Choose. The room went quiet. After the meeting, 7 farmers asked for Sienna's consulting rates. She helped 2 implement cover crop systems before winter. Both reported improved soil structure within 3 months. But the real validation came in December. David Chun called with an expansion offer. We want to feature your operation in our marketing. The Orchard Land Miracle. We double the contract, bring in a documentary crew, make you the face of regenerative agriculture in the Central Valley. Sienna sat in the packing shed, surrounded by crates of vegetables, and felt the weight of it. This wasn't just about her farm anymore. It was about proving that the old methods, the patient, biological, soil-first methods, could work at commercial scale. I'll do it, she said. But on one condition. You help me teach this. Set up a training program. Get more farmers doing it. Chin paused. That's not usually how these things work. Then let's change how they work. He agreed. The documentary crew arrived in January 2025. They filmed the field in full production. Rows of winter vegetables, workers harvesting and coordinated teams, the packing shed humming with activity. They interviewed Tom Vieira, who said, her grandfather was the smartest farmer I knew. She's proving he was right all along. They interviewed Marina, who said, this is the future. We just needed someone brave enough to build it first. And they interviewed Sienna, standing in soil that had been dead 18 months earlier. The interviewer asked, what would you say to farmers who think this can't work? Sienna looked at the field, at the life erupting from ground everyone had given up on. I'd say soil doesn't care what people think. It cares about biology. Feed the biology, and the biology feeds you. My grandfather knew that. I'm just proving it again. The documentary aired in March. The response was overwhelming. 42 farmers requested consultations in the first week. Universities asked Sienna to speak. The USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service wanted to study her methods. Western Valley Land Group called one last time. A different voice, more respectful. Miss Oakes, we're no longer interested in purchasing. We're interested in partnership. We'd like to convert 300 acres using your methods. Would you consult? Sienna thought about corporations, their hunger for land, their history of extraction. Only if you commit to keeping the land in agricultural production. No development. We can agree to that. And you pay me enough to fund scholarships for young farmers learning these methods. A longer pause. Deal. By June 2025, Sienna's operation had expanded to 53 acres, the original 41 plus 12 she'd leased from a retiring farmer. Her crew was 11 people. Her weekly production was £3,000. Her consulting income matched her farming income, and the land kept getting better. The soil test from June showed organic matter at 6.1%, micronutrient levels exceeding conventional farmland, microbial biomass off the charts. The ground that had been a graveyard was now the healthiest soil in the county. Tom Vieira came by on a hot afternoon in late June, found Sienna in the field checking irrigation. You ever regret it? Buying this place? Every day for the first 6 months, Sienna said honestly. Not once since. Your grandfather would be proud. Hell, I'm proud, and I barely know you. That evening, Sienna sat on the tailgate of her new truck, bought used but reliable, and opened her grandfather's notebook to the last entry. Raymond Oakes had written it 3 weeks before he died. The land teaches if you listen. Most people stop listening. Too much noise, too much hurry, too much faith in chemicals and corporations. But the truth is simple. Healthy soil grows healthy food. Rebuild the soil, and everything else follows. I wish I had more time to prove this at scale. Maybe someone else will. Sienna pulled out a pen and added her own entry below her grandfather's words. Grandpa, I proved it. The land you taught me to listen to fed me, employed my neighbors, and started changing minds. Your notebooks saved me, and now I'm using them to save other farms. The orchard land isn't dead anymore. It's teaching the valley what you always knew. Patience and biology beat chemicals and debt every time. Thank you for leaving me the knowledge. I won't let it be forgotten again. Sienna, June 24th, 2025. She closed the notebook, watched the sun set over 53 acres of abundance, and smiled. The land was alive. The knowledge was spreading. And somewhere, she thought, her grandfather was smiling too.